Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for Adventures in Careerland. Hi, I'm Adriano Magnifico, and I am your host. I'm the Career and Entrepreneurship Consultant for the Louis Riel School Division. And in this division, we have some very unique programming. One of the programs is the Broadcast Media Program, and that's where we are. We're in the studio of the Broadcast Media Program, and we are, in our podcast, we're live with a very cool board. Like, it just gets me all excited. It's like Star Trek, and I feel like I'm on the bridge of the SS Enterprise. What's the number? NCC 1701. That's where we're at. And I'm joined ably by my assistants, my student producers, who are students in this program, which is honestly one of the gems of the 13 programs in this building, the Arts and Technology Center. And they're learning how to be broadcast media people. They're learning how to figure out what skills they want, what's important to them, what values they have. And one day they're going to want a job. And that's Zoe Kruzek. Zoe, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Are you excited by being in the broadcast media program?
Yes.
Okay, why?
Mainly just a different experience in normal school, and this is something I'm interested. I want to go into like the film and like television industry as a career eventually.
Well, you have a great voice. And Akira Sakaki, who is also in the program, but a year older, because he's already graduated. He's a high school graduate from Windsor Park Collegiate. Zoe isn't. She's graduating shortly through the program, acquiring some credits through the program. But Akira, what have you learned in this program? What are you hoping to get out of it?
You know, one of my favorite things that we've learned really is the Adobe suite. I've had past experience with Adobe, but now we're getting more into like editing, like footage and films and all that. We're doing a short film right now, and that's one of my favorite things to do, just the editing parts. So that's one of my favorite things I've gotten out of this so far.
Is it fair to say you two love being in this creative enterprise, the creative arts?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you don't want to be accountants or things like that?
No.
Collective, no. That's very nice. Well, you know what? You're super lucky today because this show, we're in season 3, episode 3, and this show is going to be a doozy because I've gone to the archives to find this guest way back when. And this was way back in 1990. I was a teacher at River East Collegiate. Back then, the best school in the province. Maybe the country, maybe the world. I'm not sure. And I was fortunate to have this student in my class. So I'd like to introduce to you Dave Bastl, who is a broadcast media person. His life has been broadcast media, and he's been on a number of really important national radio shows and TV shows. So it's pretty cool. And I've watched his ascension with great interest because whenever I have a student, I always feel like he's one of mine. So David Bastl, how are you, sir?
Hi, it's great to be here, and thanks for the awesome introduction. This is going to be a lot of fun.
You know what, Dave? What we do here is we talk about life being a student, and we talk about the decisions you make as a student, what you learn going through life, and down the road we're going to ask you, what would you tell a grade 11? I mean, you were in my class in 1989 or 91. I think it was 90. Do you remember?
I think it was 91. 91, yeah, that sounds right.
Do you remember sitting in that class? What was going through your head?
I do. And hey, you know what? All seriousness, English was probably my favorite subject because there was a lot of school that really wasn't my thing. I went to it. Yes, I attended. I did okay. Probably not as good as I probably could have if I would have put more of that sort of effort into it like I did with English. But no, I really liked it. I had one main career path in my head, and it was to play professional hockey. Now, if that never worked out, I would be damned if I wasn't covering it or doing something with sports because I needed to do something that was going to grab my attention for my life as a working individual in this society. And sure enough, I've been lucky to say that has come 1,000% true.
It has. And is it fair to say you didn't like to sit still in school?
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, absolutely. You know, honestly, and I think you probably remember it because we've joked about it in the past. I do. Sports was massive with me. I played on almost every single sports team possible. Extra activities outside of school was probably number 2, and then school would kind of fall by the wayside, maybe even off the podium, so to speak. So I always, you're doing your school thing, but you're always thinking about what you're going to do after school. And I'm not talking about career-wise. I'm talking about where are we going at 3:30 and what time is practice.
Right. That's right. And more importantly, what's going on the weekend, right?
That's exactly it. Now it's fun to have that sort of side of it, but looking back, I probably would have changed things, but I think a lot of people would anyway. So.
Yeah, a little bit. And you know what? You were way ahead of your time, though, Dave, as I recall, because you were involved in your cluster. And I've spoken on this podcast before about, avoid the needle in a haystack version of I must be an engineer. Because if that doesn't work out and you're not good with thermodynamic math, which I saw my son doing, and, I had to keep slipping food under the door, your whole career path may disintegrate in front of you unless you think of it in the context of a cluster, right? So you said, I'm not going to play hockey, but you were a sports guy. Like, I really admire what you did because I loved hockey too. I used to calculate hockey and baseball a lot. I used to calculate batting averages all the time, well before they came out. So I was doing math. And I sucked at math, but if the math teacher knew that I was doing this in my head because I just got used to it and I was doing all that kind of work, and I love Corsi stats. They drive me nuts. Yes. They're so interesting. You must love that stuff.
Yeah. And my mom will say to this day, even as a kid in single digits, I would scan the stats pages of the Winnipeg Sun and the Winnipeg Free Press, and I would go over it and over it and over it, and my mom would wonder, why am I continuing to just look at that one particular section every single day? That's when I guess we had newspapers delivered to our house, but
that's right. That's
another story. But that was my life, though, as far as my reading side of things, right? That
you hold it. I taught English.
I was enthralled with that.
You weren't reading my books. What are you trying to say here?
Occasionally I did. I probably. So, but no, it's all about the stats, and like even to this day, I'll know batting average, save percentage, shooting percentage, goals against average before I'll remember people's birthdays and before I know days of the week.
Yeah, your children must really like that. Dad, you missed my birthday. Yeah, but I know Carey Price's average. Okay.
That's right.
That's really important. Or I know what I just talked to you about Nick Suzuki, this big contract he got, and. You automatically said right away, I'm sure the stats are running through your head. No, that's great value for the buck, especially in years 3, 4, and 5 or something like that, because you're already running the numbers through your head. That's pretty cool. So in high school, you're sitting there, right? You're waiting what to do, and you want to be this guy. Your route in those days, it was CRECOM, Creative Communications, right at Red River. Were there any other routes? There may have been, but that was the high-profile one, wasn't it?
That was. If I wanted to stay in the province, that was it. And the funny part is, so right after high school, that was my first intention. And I applied. I got to the testing part and failed the testing part. So I spent some time at the University of Winnipeg and just kind of, I guess, keeping sharp, I guess you can say, as far as academics.
What were you doing at the University of Winnipeg? You're doing nothing, weren't you?
I got really good at playing pool, I'll tell you that. I was very good at playing pool. But the thing is, I thought, okay, well, I was a little disappointed. And then a couple years later, I did it again and failed again for a second consecutive time.
Okay, so what's going through your head, though? Like in those days, though, when you failed, there was a bigger stigma than today. Today we say, oh, fail often, fail fast. Like that's the big entrepreneurial, mantra now, right? In those days, how did you feel going through that?
Oh, like garbage, because the stuff they used to test is like I knew that you'd know how to write and you'd know how to orchestrate a paragraph and so forth, but some of the testing where they'd give you the exact word, the spelling of a word, and they give you 5 different options, and they change letters around for you. Like that isn't what I looked at as, oh, I'm going to be a broadcaster, I know how to spell approximate or something of that. It's like, why am I being tested on this? And I was very frustrated because I guess a fair assessment is I'm not necessarily school smart. I think I'm school adequate, but street smart, it might be aces kind of thing. And this was not testing that was strong on me, and it showed in the results. Like when you're scoring 60s and 65s, that's not going to get you anywhere when you need 75, 80s to get in to qualify, right?
Well, that's right. But in those days, testing was the only way you moved forward. right? Like in programs. I mean, even now you see some American universities dumping their SATs to get in because those tests are ridiculous, engaging who you are as a person and what you can bring to any kind of organization. So Zoe and Akira, are you guys test takers?
I hate tests.
I don't like tests.
Okay. Could you guys be a little more specific?
Okay, you want to go first?
Sure. I just have a lot of trouble like remembering things. So when it comes to tests, like you have that extra stress and pressure that I just can't remember anything, and I'm practically guessing everything on the test.
All right, so you wouldn't fit into the 90s, I tell you.
No,
okay.
I'm not a 90s student.
But do you have the drive this guy has? Because, well, Akira, are you a test person?
No, and I always bring it up. Like I always say that I could go on and on about how I would redo the educational system. But I went to Nelson Mac in grade 9 because there was no test, because of project-based learning. Because I thought that would be the best way. Because I'm a hands-on kind of person. I don't like to sit down and like do things like on paper. I actually like to learn something and use it that same day. So I always scaled. Is that the word?
Well, no, that's just the education system failing you.
Yeah, no, well, I was always good. I'm gonna say it that way. I was always good at like metals and woods and all that because we learned something and then we would use it. So I always like to learn something and then know why I'm going to use it. So I went to Nelson for that.
Yeah, and you know what? And I've seen both these guys. And Dave, these two are great examples. They are honestly, they're skilled and gifted people. I work with these two. I'm so impressed with their brain, their creativity. And really, when they're working on a project, you guys get things done. Sometimes you do, Akira. You're getting better at it. Zoe's a machine. So when you are passionate about what you're doing, you go. So you failed both these tests, but you're still passionate about sports and such. So what's going through your head, Dave?
I really didn't know at the time. Like I was never looking at a different direction. I actually signed up for a couple marketing courses to actually pursue maybe a back route of broadcast, because a lot of combinations between broadcast is marketing itself, and I've seen the I guess the handoff between the two occupations. So I thought maybe I backdoor this from a marketing side, but lo and behold, my first year of marketing, I hear this promo on the radio. So they are auditioning people to apply for this job for this full scholarship at Robertson Career College. Now, Robertson doesn't exist anymore.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Does it really?
Yeah, it's in
Robertson
Winnipeg.
College, yeah.
In fact, they've
College,
rebranded the whole thing. Like, it looks really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, but do they still have the media program? Because I heard
They
it
do.
turned into ABC College.
They have it.
Oh, is it ABC College, though?
I haven't heard that. I know that there's one for Red River, the broadcast meet, but that's a new one, and Robinson has one as well.
Okay, so
Yeah,
I guess people are expanding. They see this as
They are.
a real need out there.
Yeah, so I hear about this on the radio, and they're like, give us your 30-second commercial and phone it into this number. So I take pen to paper, very assignment driven, give my best 30 seconds of a commercial, pick up the phone, the voicemail comes on, I say my commercial, and that was it. About 2 weeks later, I received a phone call saying, we'd like you to come in to fill out some of these testing, because when you're going to this college, they don't want to just give it to anybody. But apparently a lot of people applied for this because they wanted big numbers. 300 people apply for this. And then I get a weird call about a month later saying, listen to Q94 FM. Not sure if that exists anymore, but listen to Q94 FM. We're announcing our winner.
Yeah, Q94 does exist.
I think that exists
it?
as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it does.
I think it's QX94 now.
They might have. Yeah, they might
Well,
have.
it's still 94.
Yeah, it's still.
Yeah.
the same, but
Okay.
yeah.
Well, it was a really popular rock station, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
people did listen to it back in the day. I'm not sure what the story is now, but so lo and behold, they announced the winner. It's me. And so the writing joke is I won my scholarship, $10,000 scholarship, by the way, by being the 10th caller, because all my friends kind of joked about it. Meanwhile, there was so much background behind it and that's kind of where it took off, right? So I get that scholarship, and I'm like, boom, I'm in a broadcast media school that is pinpointing me in the right direction, and away we go.
So what was that called? That's a full year at Robertson then, right?
That's a full year.
Where you're
That's a
pretty
full
much
year.
learning all the hands-on stuff, all the hands-on parts of being in this industry, right?
Completely. And it's more of exactly what I was looking for, in front of the camera, in front of a microphone, learning on the boards. I heard you guys talking about editing off the top. They had editing suites. It was very technical. The equipment in there was from an old CBC guy who is now the prof of that division of the school. So it was very detail oriented. It was about 20 kids. There was me and another student ended up being the only ones that really, I guess, made its way through. Troy Scott, I don't know if you're familiar with Troy Scott, but he's a massive program director working in Western Canada. He worked in Winnipeg for a while. Me and him both graduated from that program and are still in the industry. But it was amazing, and my dedication to that 1 year was like no other part of my life that I've ever done.
Well, that's amazing. So you found this path. See, this is how serendipitous life is, right? You're listening to a radio show and says, send me a quick 30-second commercial. So 30 seconds of your life. Now, must have been there was a qualitative piece to this, right? They select you and whittle you down. They announce you.
Yeah.
They announce you as the winner, right? But surely they selected you, right? You weren't pulled out of a hat.
No, I got the feeling when they started doing some tests and they went over tests and went over an interview process. One of the guys kept on talking to me about certain things, and you get a feeling that you're liked or at least appreciated when the guy will not stop talking. And because I was interviewed among 4 different people in a little 20-minute session, so to speak, and you got the feeling, and it was like, well, I don't want to feel too confident, but sometimes when things are about to explode, and sure enough, this is what happened.
That's fantastic. Now think about this: you took Crecom. And you thinking that's all I can do in Winnipeg. Where did your chance come? Like, honestly, when I saw you again, it was on television.
Yeah.
I thought, is that my Dave?
That was probably at Global Winnipeg too, wasn't it?
Yeah, something like that too. Yeah, first of all, I saw you there. And then when you left Global, like you worked at Global Winnipeg, what was your first big job, I guess, that said, I'm in the industry, oh my gosh?
Well, okay, so at the end of that course at Robertson, the goal was to find work as far as doing a practicum, right? And I didn't look for practicum. I was looking for a job. I ended up finding a job in the second last month of school that they actually offered me a full salary to move to Edmonton to work behind the scenes at Global Edmonton, which was ITV at the time. So instead of working a practicum, I actually received a job, and that's kind of where it took off from there, because I was there for a couple of years, did a lot of volunteer work, a lot of behind the scenes stuff, a lot of stuff with the Oilers and the Edmonton Eskimo Football Club at the time. Yes, I know they're the Elks now, but they were Eskimos not too long ago, and basically earned my new review tape that I would eventually send to Global Saskatoon. And that was my first on-air job, where lights, camera, action, you're the host of the show kind of thing. So, and that's kind of where it started.
Wow. So you were ready to move out. What was it like moving away? Were you just ready to do that because of I'm a sports and this is what it is? I'm a sports guy.
I wasn't. No, I wasn't. I was 26 years old. I know that seems that it's like, oh, you waited that long, but my first move out of my house was literally to Western Canada. I wasn't prepared that way, but I was prepared to go after the goal of getting into sports broadcasting. And this wasn't a door opening. This was an entire house opening for me. And I took advantage of it. Even, and it's almost weird because it's, once you get into the front door, I wasn't just sitting around. I was doing literally everything. I was volunteering in the sports department. I was writing script. I was putting together tapes. I was editing. I was the first intern in that building, because a lot of things are free, unfortunately, when you start off in broadcasting. I was the first one to get my very own Edmonton Oiler press pass. And they never gave these out unless you were a reporter, and they wanted me to do post-game interviews with every single Oilers game, every day of the week, I was getting paid $0 and 0 cents. But my goal was to use everything I did on camera there to my eventual resume tape that I would earn my first job with. So I was probably working 35 hours paid, and I was probably working an additional 45 hours unpaid over the course of 2 years to try to get what I wanted out of that station.
So is that part of what the industry says you got to do now and before?
Great question. I think anything you do in life, you have to put in as much as you possibly can if you want it badly enough. I think that, there are probably easier avenues than that, but I personally felt like if I was doing everything I possibly can and exhausting every avenue, I would get to where I was going to go. Like I'll take it a step forward. When there was an application process with Global Saskatoon, there were probably 45 people that sent in resumes and CDs, and I guess at the time there was even VHS tapes. This is going back a ways.
Do you guys know what a VHS tape is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
good.
I used to watch them.
You used to watch them.
I did.
Okay. Back on the farms, always from a farm, right? So.
Yeah. Well, back then, so there was probably at least, let's just say roughly 50 people applied, 50 people sent in tapes. I drove my tape from Edmonton to Saskatoon in a 6.5-hour window, knocked on the front door of Global Saskatoon, handed it to the news director, and said, "I'd like you to consider this because I think I'm your best candidate for this opening position." And sure enough,
did you add something like, "And where can I get a sandwich around here?" Like, it's holy cow, that's amazing. Yeah. I love that story.
I had some confidence, and I think I still do, but I knew that I had to stand out. And as much as everybody was applying for this virtually from North America, not just Canada,
yes,
that I needed to sit there and look somebody in the face and say, I'm your right choice, and I can start today.
So
that's exactly what I did.
I'm really getting the impression like this whole industry is pretty competitive, isn't it? It's like trying out for hockey teams. Like my kids I always played for the Bush League. So I never, when I tried out for things, I knew I was going, in the old days, we called it the Bush League. Now it's not, I don't think it's quite the woke way to speak about it. Maybe a developmental league or something, but I was always at the bottom league or something. And I didn't mind. I like playing with my buddies. So I never felt the pressure. I always knew I was going to be cut, but every once in a while you thought, hey, I got a shot. And then, hey, it's funny they didn't invite me back for the next 4 practices. What happened? Anyway, but that's like, you played pretty competitive hockey, right? You played some competitive sports.
Yeah, I played Manitoba Junior.
Yeah. So I mean, you get that, right? It's a competitive, and you're looking over your shoulder at all the guys who are on your wing, who are playing on that wing, who you're battling with, right? I mean, that's the way you did that all the time. Is this industry like that, even at the media level?
Yes. Even more so, because when you're battling in camp, there's 25 guys, and they're all great and everything like that. But when you're battling for a job somewhere, some of the positions I've applied for have had applications in the thousands. So take that into consideration too, and try to stand out amongst that group. That's your, you can be good because there's a lot of good people. There's a lot of good people in this industry that never made it.
Yes.
But it's almost like that 1% of the 1%, right?
So what things does a young person have to do to stand out then? Like I'm looking at these two people in front of me. They've got to be wondering, what do I need to do to stand out then? What makes a difference in your mind?
In my mind,
yeah.
You definitely have to have the drive. You have to, I was constantly thinking about sports 24/7. Now I'm not saying everybody has to be that just to succeed, but that was my thing, right? I mean, the dedication, the drive. I think maturity also played a factor too, because the David Bastl that failed at Creecom and the David Bastl that succeeded 4 or 5 years later were completely two different people. And I think that came with maturity. And I think that's, there's an age discretion too between ages 20 and 25. It's a big gap.
Yes.
Yeah,
and really, going out to live on your own and survive and take care of all your own personal needs along with your professional needs. when you just
Yep.
embark on those journeys, things happen to you as a person, right?
Yeah, they do. They do. And the commitments, the sense of purpose you feel that you're no longer, sitting at home waiting for that next meal when you come in the door, and you're getting it yourself kind of thing, right? So I also knew that if I didn't go fifth gear on everything I was doing, I would regret it probably for the rest of my life, because it was, you could taste it, you could feel it, it was there. But I have to achieve this, because if I don't do it now, it's going to pass you by. Unfortunately, it did not.
Wow, that's some powerful stuff. So what are you two thinking when you hear Dave talk about you got to be in fifth gear all the time?
Well, not necessarily in the fifth gear spot, but when you were saying like,
Yeah, she's saying, screw the fifth gear, Dave. I'm not, no.
well, because you were saying that you were putting in a lot of extra time in your job, and I think that really helps you to stand out when applying for jobs, because it just shows your commitment to your work, and it shows that you will do anything to do what you love.
Yeah, that's a great way of looking at it. Exactly.
Akira, what are you thinking?
Like when you were just saying, like the fact that you drove 6 hours to physically in person hand in your tape, that just shows a whole level of like commitment and drive, because it's something, there's no way that you could do that and not stand out, because no one's just going to drive that distance and all those hours just to be there. And I think it's something we hear time after time, especially like with Mr. P. He always talks about, and like anyone I've gotten the opportunity to interview in the broadcast media field, they always talk about like, oh yeah, when I was freelancing, I'd be sleeping like in like the studio, and then I wake up at 5 a.m. and run to another studio and so on, and doing all this work. And like most of it, it's a lot of times it's like volunteer work for that experience, but I feel like there's a big grind. Like there's a huge grind to be able to get anywhere.
Are you two ready for the grind?
Well,
Well, that was a real. I think there's an accounting program that's opening up just down in another hallway if you're interested. Anyway,
it's actually it's super intimidating. It's so scary to think
Well,
about.
does it scare you guys a bit? That's an interesting
Yes.
point.
100%.
Yes.
Okay. Did you feel scared, Dave, doing all this, or you just thought, I'm going to do it anyway? I'm dropped.
Yeah.
I'm just
you know
nervous.
You know what? At times, sure, because there's, you're in a, honestly, like that. My literal first move out of my parents' basement was to Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. So when you're not working, you have a lot of time to digest and think about, am I doing this the right way? What happens if I fail? What happens if this? What happens if that? You know what I mean? Like there's a lot. Sometimes you hear those voices, right? And it's and my part in my head, most of those voices were, you can do this. And most of those voices were, you're better than that. You're better. You know what I mean? So it wasn't, although doubt creeps, I was very, very sure to give it a solid punch so, to get it out of the system. So, because it's always going to be there, and you have a lot of time. Sometimes when you think too much, it's not always the most healthiest thing to do.
Yeah, we always do that. We overthink things,
That's
right?
fair.
Yeah.
And that's a major career. I talk to kids in career development circles. Just stop overthinking this. Just go try it.
Yeah.
Just go do it.
I feel like a lot of people overthink, and then they never end up doing what they wanted to do because they were stuck overthinking.
Yeah.
Right on. Hey, tell us now. I mean, you're working in the West at some of these smaller stations. I remember seeing you on TSN and stuff like that, or Sportsnet. Yeah. So tell us when you moved to that level. Was this like a major leap to you?
Well, here's in a nutshell. Here's what happened. So I'm in Saskatoon, and I'm there for about 10 months, and the entire time, the goal was to. I got in the front door. As soon as I got into that front door, the goal was to leave. Because I'm not here to stay in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, albeit it's a great city.
I guess you didn't say that in the interview, though.
I didn't say that. No. And it's funny because when everything was said and done, the program director said to me, "You were here the shortest amount of time, and we weren't sure where you were going to go with everything, but we knew that there was enough drive that you wanted more." So we were very impressed how fast you actually got out of here.
Okay.
So the goal was I felt that I knew that I wouldn't call Winnipeg home for the rest of my life because the media capital of Canada is in Toronto. So I knew I had to get there, but I wanted to work in Winnipeg. I wanted to have my grandparents watch me, my parents, my friends, my great teachers that I've had. I wanted to be the local kid that did well. So the goal was to get back to Winnipeg, and I was there for at least 4 or 5 years, which was great. But then after that, and this is something you should unfortunately get used to if you're in the media industry, when there's 10 jobs, media businesses will cut that to 7. And then they'll look at the 7 jobs in a couple of years and say, you know what, we only need 3. And then the 3 jobs will become 1, because that's the scary part about this industry. It's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And that was the first time I was let go. And I wasn't let go because of performance. I was let go because they were cutting an entire Sportsline show. And guess who was the host of Sportsline? Me. So the great part about that was I get cut from Global Winnipeg the very next afternoon, basically, because I still remember it to this day, and I'll always remember it. I'm in the office at my general manager, my program director, and my sports director, Joe Pascucci. You know him, Mags. And we're all sitting around, and I walk in smiling, and because I'm thinking I'm getting a raise because I've been doing. I know that seriously. I'm thinking I'm getting a raise. And I walk in there and say hi to everybody and this and that. My general manager turns to me and says, Dave, this isn't going to be a very good conversation. And then as soon as you hear that, we've all been there. The sweat down your back starts to, it clicks in. I'm like, okay, what have I done? And sure enough, I didn't do anything, but they were making cuts. I get cut. And so I'm stunned. I'm shocked. I'm like, okay, what do I do now? I go back to my desk. I grab all my, like it's basically a phone book, and I head out the door. And within 15 minutes, I was knocking on the door at A Channel, and I'm not joking. This is how cocky I was. I was knocking on the door at A Channel 15 minutes after losing my job at Global Winnipeg, asking to speak to the program director. He knows who I am just through the industry. I walk into his office. I explain my situation, and he says to me, it's unfortunate, so forth, but we love your anchoring. Would you consider news anchoring? Because if you were, we'd like you to audition, and the audition is on Monday. This is a Friday, and on Monday I was auditioning at the A Channel as a news anchor for that station. And that's the kind of mentality you have to have in this industry, because it's not so much when you get knocked down, but how fast and how strong you get up from that knockdown. Because I've been knocked down probably 3 or 4 times in this industry, but I've gotten up every single time, and you can never stop getting up or you're finished.
Yeah. So then from A Channel, where did you go?
A Channel, I'm there. No, I'm not joking about this. A Channel, I get the job. I'm a weekend news anchor, reporter during the week. 4 weeks later, I get a phone call from the Score in Toronto. That's my big break, because they said they've been watching me on Global Winnipeg. They heard about my situation. They heard I'm at A Channel, blah, blah, blah. Would you be interested in they offered me a job. I didn't apply. They offered me the job.
So they noticed you out there. You got noticed out there. That's awesome.
Yeah. They said it's a mat leave in Calgary, and you'd be covering the Flames and the Stampeders. And before they even announced how much I was going to make, I said yes. So, and that's where it kind of takes off. I go from Calgary, covered for a year. The Score loves me. I love them. I still love them. I think it's the greatest company I've ever worked for. Met my future wife at the Score as well. So I don't have to tell you how important that is. They moved me to Ottawa. I cover the Senators. I cover everything Ottawa, etc. Sportsnet discovers me, and Sportsnet hires me out of Ottawa from the Score and takes me as their own. I become the Maple Leaf reporter, the top job in the country. And that's kind of where I finally make my connection to Toronto. And I've been there ever since. I haven't been at the Sportsnet, of course, because I've had stops at TSN and the Fan 590 and some other places, but NHL Network as well. But that was how I dove into the market of Toronto, Ontario.
Well, that's a spectacular piece. Now, you told me in another conversation that they let you go. In this business, people just let you go, right?
Yeah.
So you lost a few of those. Like when you were fortunate to move from Calgary. Were you let go at Calgary? Did you just find another opportunity in Ottawa?
No. The contract was up in Calgary, and
okay.
The score asked me if I am willing to take another 1-year term, but it would be in Ottawa, and of course I said yes.
Okay.
And then when I'm in Ottawa, everything's going good there. I didn't mind the city too much, but when you're in Ottawa and you see Toronto in the rearview mirror kind of thing, or I guess
that's the sports holy city.
That's it, right?
Yeah,
and then
so what was
I
the
made
worst?
the jump there.
You said you've been let go a couple of times. What was the worst moment where you just went, oh, geez, not now?
It was probably in Toronto, getting cut from Sportsnet when I was covering the Leafs, because that was, I was on top of the podium at that time, and of course, when you look back at it, you're like, well, of course you're going to get cut eventually, because when you have 7 Leaf reporters in 8 years, guess what that means? You know what I mean?
That's right. So
it's like always that new face in there, and there's so many different people making decisions ahead of you, and sometimes if you're hired by one person and the other person, and then he or she moves on, another person comes in, and just like sports, Mags, if you're not their guy, a lot of times the new guy isn't going to love the decisions of the prior general manager or the prior PD or the prior associate producer and so forth. So
yeah.
You get tossed around a little bit in the blender.
Well, you're in a great job right now, aren't you? Something you love?
I am, yeah. But you know what? The funny thing is I do a lot of little things, right? So I host the morning show on News Talk Saga 960, which is great. I get to do it out of my home, which is even better because the commute down the stairs in the basement is like none other. I also work at the Fan 590 on the weekend doing a couple different shows for them. I've gotten, the last couple of years, I've started to work for Sports Interaction, which is Canada's online sports book. Now that gaming and sports betting and gambling, a lot to do with sports, of course, has to be sports if it's going to hold my interest, is now probably one of the hottest properties in North America right now.
Yeah, gambling's exploding, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And it's the same sort of analysis because you're breaking down numbers, you're looking at trends, why is the home team, why is the visiting team, who's injured, who's not injured. I'm not necessarily looking at why somebody won.
Who's throwing the game.
Why I think.
You hear these guys throwing the game. That kills every time I bet. I find out somebody threw the game. Oh, great! I'm a really lucky gambler.
There you go. So, but yeah, so stuff like that, right? And it's been a lot of fun. I'm still in the industry I want to be in, and it's been, obviously there's been plenty of luck and there's been plenty of prepared opportunities that I've been ready for. And I think when you combine the two, it's a successful recipe.
Oh, that's a great line. Obviously, you do these sound bites all the time.
Yeah, time code that one, okay?
All right, for sure. I like it. Anyway, you know what? This is amazing. What would you tell a young person now? I'm looking at these two young person, and you scared the bejesus out of them. So which was part of your goal, I guess. So what would you tell young people? Now, these guys are a little past it, right? But a kid, they're in it. They've chosen broadcast media because they've already had, a sense of it, a sniff of it, and they're enjoying it, and they want to move on and do this. What would you tell just a kid sitting in a classroom in grade 11 like you were? Like, do you remember, but way back when you organized the original Don Cherry fan club?
That's right.
Like, that's amazing because you were a sports guy, and in those days, Cherry was, a crusty pundit. Everybody kind of half admired or didn't, right? Now he's kind of canceled, but it's in those days, in 1990, the guy was a celebrity.
More popular than the prime minister, right, Meg?
Well, that's something like that at the time, right? And you reached out to him.
Yeah.
That's an amazing thing. Like, who would choose to reach out to one of Canada's, at the time, celebrities and say,
it really was.
We want to do something. So I always knew when you did that, something interesting would happen to you. And that was with your buddy Kutka there, Warren. And
and you know what? Still my best friend to this day, too. So That's the funniest part. So.
Oh, that's an awesome thing.
I probably don't go a day without texting him. And sometimes it's making fun of each other, and sometimes it's serious, and sometimes it's a lot of Winnipeg Jet talk, let me tell you.
Oh, that's a beautiful thing. You know what? I'm getting the word from these Cracker Jack producers here that you're going a little long, Magnifico. And you know what, Bastl, did I ever go long in class? Was that ever a problem?
No. So you kind of tapped out early all the time.
Well,
or maybe that was me. That was me.
No, I think it was you. I just kept talking. Sometimes I was talking, people were leaving the room. I never quite understood how that worked.
Hey, let me share a story with you, too.
Okay.
Because the one thing, I don't think I've ever told you this, because you and I have talked over the years, and it's been fantastic. You're one of the few teachers I actually still talk to, and it's not because I don't like my teachers. There's certain teachers you hit it off with, and certain teachers are just going to be teachers, right? I always was disappointed in myself because you were a big basketball guy.
Yes.
And I like basketball a lot, but I could never try out for your teams because basketball interfered with hockey, and hockey season ran side by side with basketball.
Yes.
And my coaches always told me, you're either going to do one or the other. And guess what? You, sir, were always the silver medalist in my mind because I was a fairly decent basketball player, and I always wanted to play. But unfortunately, it always conflicted with hockey, and hockey will be my forever gold medal.
Well, look at this analogy. He turns it into an Olympic decathlon event. I think it's a beautiful thing. You're a sports guy. You're full of metaphors, right? It's one metaphor after another. That's funny. I just love that you pursue this. Now we're going to do, quickly, what would you tell a kid, though, who's sitting there thinking, what should I do with my life? What would you quickly give us? Quickly, because we got to get onto this.
Yeah, I know. Well, you have to be committed. You have to have the purpose of really wanting to do this. You can't just like it. I'm going to say obsess over it. When I say obsess, I mean it in the best possible way. I don't mean it in a sometimes the way obsess is kind of thrown out in society. You have to have the drive, the maturity, the dedication, the wanting, the needing. You have to, you have to read, you have to watch, you have to learn, you have to evaluate, you have to throw yourself fully into it. But if it's truly something you want, don't let anybody stop you, because there's always going to be somebody that isn't sure. But guess what? They don't run your decisions. You have to take care of yourself. You have to answer to yourself. And if you could live with your decisions at the end of the day, then that's probably the best route that you could possibly do, and that's probably the best way I could describe it as well.
Well, that's a great line. Again, I'm always talking. I feel like I'm talking to a Hallmark card here. It's unbelievable. You're fantastic at this.
I don't have any notes in front of me. I'm
okay,
sorry.
I know. I love it. I love it. Anyway, we do one quick round here. You guys ready? We're going to ask you some questions. I'm going to spring this on you. Call it the Whip It round. They're going to ask you things. You have to answer them real quick.
Fire.
Okay? And don't prolong this. So in the last Whip It round, people started explaining, discussing. That's not the purpose, you guys. It's quick.
Okay.
It's got to be fast. Okay? Are you ready? Who's going first?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So the Whip It round, we're going to ask you a few questions. You have to answer them as quick as you can. As Mr. Magnifico says, quick as a whip.
Yep.
So,
the snap of a whip. Like I'm an old Indiana Jones guy, okay? That's why we call it the Whip It round.
Okay. So what's your dream vacation location?
Turks and Caicos.
Coffee or tea?
Neither.
Car or bike?
Car.
Favorite music artist?
You too.
And what do you put on your toast?
Butter only, and sometimes nothing.
Summer or winter?
Winter.
Is your desk messy or tidy?
Messy.
Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Wars by far.
Something in your fridge that's likely expired?
Chocolate milk.
Favorite social media platform?
Twitter. Twitter by far.
And you just got whipped.
Okay, this is what we're trying to brand this, and it's going very slowly.
Oh yeah, it's not. We're not doing good at this.
But we're getting better. Any great insight you want to offer to us, Dave, about how to do the Whip It round, please send us.
Well, you guys, I kind of threw a little bit at you because I've never drank a coffee in my life, and I've had maybe 2 teas in my life, so it really wasn't fair because I said nothing to
No, but that's okay.
That clearly said.
That's okay.
Tell me which one you like.
That just tells us you have a bit of a dysfunctional mind, and we can appreciate that. I completely understand.
You've known that for 30 years.
Yes, I've known that for a long time. You are your own coffee. You are awake and alive all the time. That's why I said you take care of things in class. That's why I said you never really like to sit It seemed like you were on coffee, but you weren't. Anyway, I don't know what else you were on there, but anyway, we'll continue on, ladies and gentlemen. That was great, Dave. This has been spectacular. I can't tell you how I enjoyed this and connecting with you again, and I want to talk with you down the road, obviously, but it's so nice hearing your story in this kind of detail. So I hope you guys got something out of this, you broadcast media folks, yes?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
quick, yeah. Teacher said that. We better give him a yes. Anyway, I appreciate it, Dave, and that's the end of our program for today. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of Adventures in Careerland. Be safe out there. We'll see you next time.